Hello, everyone. And today I'm finally taking a look at Warcraft 3. Wow, I am blown away. Like, legitimately, I had no idea what I was getting into. There's a lot of people who talk about certain classic games, and some of them have aged poorly, some of them were good for the time. Well, Warcraft 3 is peak distinct Blizzard. I now, from playing this game, I not only appreciate what Warcraft is, but I understand all the spin-offs. I understand the MMO. I understand the philosophy behind their other games and other games inspired by them. Like, what was it? It wasn't Dawn of War, but it was like 2010 Darksiders, for example. Very much Blizzard design inspired. So there are so many things that Warcraft 3 gets so right, and I honestly did not hear a lot about this game. I just knew about World of Warcraft, so I didn't know that it even used to be an RTS. And I didn't realize all the things that this game did inspired everything from World of Warcraft to League of Legends to well, I mean, it doesn't inspire tower defense, but it does have a tower defense mini game. And it's really funny because in the later part of the DLC, that's where you get all these little experimental things happening. And I'm really jumping ahead here, but in the last couple levels in Frozen Throne, they do these very experimental things. You can unlock the tower defense like extra game as the next mission if you do a little sheep puzzle. And the one I think after that, or a couple after that, is very much like the League inspired one. I know League started, or Dota started technically as like a custom map in Warcraft 3, but I never understood this really nice transition from RTS to MOBAs. And it's such a interesting evolution of the entire PC genre because PC was RTS for so long, and it's so interesting and weird that as time has gone on and things have become more evolved and complex, that the scope of the map has actually shrunk, and there's actually more focus on singular units like the hero characters. League, I know, is a game that has devoured many lives, and it's interesting to just see the roots of that come from here. And I, again, like, I kind of knew vaguely about it, but I didn't know until I played this and I saw, oh, take an RTS and just shrink it down to something very focused, which is so interesting because other areas, like mostly open world stuff, is doing the exact opposite, especially on console. It's like, hey, let's take this small game, closed by limitations, let's open it up. And again, it's just so fascinating. Again, you can see the roots of World of Warcraft as well. I mean, even in the first few levels, not even in Frozen Throne yet, in 2002, there's in the beginning human campaign, there are certain NPCs that are off to the side, and so of course, you know, in the RTS campaign, you have to do a lot of different objectives. Sometimes defend, sometimes destroy the enemy base, very simple stuff. Sometimes you have to do an escort mission. Sometimes you have to, do capture the hill in a certain amount of time limit, etc. Sometimes you have to construct something. So, I mean, that's the first thing. There's a lot of variety in this game, but there's always optional, usually always optional side quests. So sometimes it's like, oh, hey, go help go attack that goblin camp, and then you'll get, extra warriors for your thing. And so there's always this feeling of a nice balance of exploration and discovery in these maps, not just total tactics. And you might come across sometimes extra resources, but more likely extra troops or an NPC. And the crazy thing is that the NPCs in the beginning, they have a little exclamation point over their head. I'm like, oh, what does that look like? It looks like an optional quest. So it's so interesting to see, because I always just kind of thought or felt that RTS, MMOs, MOBAs were just all these separate environments. But Warcraft 3 somehow is this marriage and this culmination, this pot where all these genres kind of sit in some form or another, and other people just decided to focus on one aspect going forward. It's amazingly impressive. Another thing that's very impressive about Warcraft 3, not only is the RTS perspective, very finely honed. Your population cap is around 100 usually in these games, and it's funny because that always would bother me. I want to keep making more units, but it never really bothered me in this. The scope of that cap never was really required to really, totally destroy the enemy, for example. And again, there's a lot of variety between the factions. We'll get into that in a sec. But I think what really makes Warcraft 3 work so well and Blizzard's RTS model work really well is that it's the perfect balance of all the right things holding your attention. And you enter this flow state where like time just passes because you're constantly occupied by balancing things like troops, resources, of which there are only two. Golden wood, similar to StarCraft. You have the whatever crystals of Mespene gas. And then you have, so obviously troop production, defense construction, hero abilities, upgrading your units, setting up new shops, developing a strategy for a certain unit type. Maybe you only want to use aerial units or ground units or siege weapons. Organizing your forces, the terrain, and positioning yourself is super important. Where your hero is, what their abilities do, figuring out a strategy for that. Again, the hero abilities, I just kind of realize now that it's usually a offensive, a defensive, and then a special or like a passive thing around your troops. That is the exact same 3 ability system that you also see in League of Legends, which is something else that you also see in Overwatch, a 3 ability system for your hero character that just kind of pushes forward. It's so interesting to think that when Blizzard was developing Overwatch, at some point, I bet they thought, hey, what if we had like autonomous attacking units, which is exactly what happens in that Frozen Throne level, where you have autonomous attacking units and you only are concerned about your hero abilities and the special items you pick up. And so it'd be interesting to think that, I mean, Overwatch, I think it did a PvE or promised a PvE mode at some point, and I'd imagine that that could have worked in a similar case where you have autonomous NPC grunts running at each other, and then you're just a support class, so you can still get kills on those guys rather than a simply 6v6 or 5v5 shooter. But in any case, I digress. The other thing that's really great, again, is, the exploration of the map, the fog of war, finding all these little hidden collectibles. So there's discovery, there's exploration, and again, doing the side quests net you these nice little rewards. And what's also really cool that I don't think I've seen in other RTSs where it also has items. So your hero character also has about 6 or so 6 slots for items that they can carry, which increase attack, intelligence, power, magic, etc. And what's really nice is that once you get that item, it actually carries over to the next level. And I've not really been used to that idea where, like an RTS, it's just like, okay, you're going to start with the same stuff every single level, and then we're just going to increase the difficulty. But here, there's actually a real point to doing the side quests because they actually give you items that carry on through the campaign. And so once I realized that, oh, I carried this over, I'm really going to keep using this now. And again, it's an RTS that really is only really defined differently by other RTSs at the time by the hero units, and that there's just more emphasis on them. And again, that built out to be so many other things. Again, so you're perfectly balancing terrain and fog and etc. and your positioning. I think another thing that I really need to talk about is the story, because most RTSs, I can't recall any single story being very significant. Usually when you're dealing with these large strategy games, you're dealing with armies, it's swaths of people. Like, the story is usually very impersonal. It talks about nations and armies, and it's very difficult to have a personal story when you're managing hundreds of units. Like, why would you? And that's where Warcraft 3 really surprises you, because it's a very very personal and very dramatic story where you have these singular characters that are kind of these demigods that are surrounded by these other kind of normal units. And so the main story, I guess, for each faction, of which I thought there were more. There's only 4 in the base game, which are humans, orcs, elves, and the undead. And then Frozen Throne tacks on, I think, like a couple new ones. They tack on the Naga, which you get to play as a little bit, and then the Blood Elves, which are, I mean, I just played, but it was kind of like a weird combination of humans and elf technology, or I don't think it was just a reskin, because I was a bit peeved by Frozen Throne to begin with, honestly, because you start off as the Night Elves again, and you just finished that campaign, but whatever. Um, and so there's a few new things here and there. But yeah, you have four main factions, and each one has a slightly different way. Well, honestly, a pretty significant way. Like, it is slightly different, but for every single little thing. How do you gather resources? For the undead, they don't have to use their basic peasant or acolyte character. They have to use the grunts, which are the little, I forget, the things that gnaw at you and claw and whatever. And and the other thing is that once an acolyte summons a building, it's being summoned, and having additional builders there doesn't do anything. So, and then for the elves, for example, they have these wisps, and if they create a tree, they actually sacrifice themselves and become the tree. And the thing is, their facilities can actually move around. So if it's a barracks or an aerial whatever, or a actually know the workshop, I think the lumber mill is like stationary, but like your main base can actually move and take up positions, and your turrets or whatever can also move and take up positions. For the humans, again, it's very standard peasants building thing. The more you have on one, they just gather gold. Meanwhile, now I think you can only have 5 acolytes at a gold mine. And then of course, extending that, there's who am I forgetting? The elves, the human, the undead. The orcs. They, I think they work pretty much the same way. But yeah, it's each one is slightly different, and they do feel very unique in a certain sense. And there is this big epic feeling, and so the story that you play as, each one is different campaign for each faction. And so for the human one that you start off as Arthas, and it's like, okay, what's going to be the story here? And it's surprisingly dark, and I would say kind of gothic in a weird way, where Arthas is a typical, I don't know, D&D lawful good character, and his lawfulness is so extreme. He's so dedicated to the idea of justice that it ends up corrupting him, because essentially what the story is that the humans in Warcraft are surprisingly like not the main character. Like, they are just another faction, which is very surprising. And the more so, they're kind of given this derision that is similar in StarCraft, where the humans are portrayed as very prideful and stupid, which is just very strange. And the orcs, they're also very stupid, but they're more of a warrior, honor-bound society. The elves are kind of this mysterious, very superior kind of civilization. And of course, the undead are just completely mindless. But it doesn't really position the humans necessarily as the good guys, which is really bizarre, frankly. It really does make it a story about good and evil and about certain characters, but there's a lot of I guess interior conflict, I would call it, where even the humans can't debate. They debate on certain things, and a lot of the campaigns are like there's a lot of internal conflict where there's not just one side good, one side bad. And so what does happen throughout the story is that these demons are invading. Previously, I guess in the Warcraft universe, it was just humans versus orcs, very straightforward. And so what happens to the humans and orcs, they essentially have a new enemy, which are the undead, basically. And the undead, which are run by demons, essentially invade Loredran, and they essentially start infecting people and giving them the plague. And once they're infected, they turn into these almost zombie-like, creatures. And so Arthas, as the crown prince of the country, Loredan, along with his sidekick Uther, who's kind of like his father's best man or something, they decide they have to cleanse, purge the plague. And because Arthas is so devoted to the idea of justice that he goes so far that people who have been infected, he kills them before they turn. And that's like an understandable stance to take. But there's kind of this thing where he keeps pushing for more and more extreme measures. And then there's this one demon called Mal'Ganis, who essentially becomes the main antagonist to Arthas. And basically Arthas pursues this guy to the ends of the earth, and he just won't let him go, even though he's left the continent just to make sure he never comes back. He goes there to fully kill him, and because he's so devoted to saving his people, even to the point of killing his own people to stop them from turning into monsters, he ends up making a pact with the Lich of the North, the Lich King, and he becomes essentially in the process of obtaining power to defend his people and extract revenge for his own personal sense of justice. He becomes a slave to a lich, which is just another form of demon. And then you have other characters that are also enslaved to demons. Even the elves, they have this interior conflict where there's Illidan, who's the other, I wouldn't say villain, but the other anti-hero of the story. And he essentially is this elf who, I don't want to say dark elf because that's a thing in Morrowind, but he's an elf who essentially was some kind of war criminal. He made a pact with demons, and they have to release him to help them fight the demons now that they're in like the final battle of the final days. And so they have a conflict. No, he's too dangerous. We can't do it. And they actually rebel against each other. Like, I don't care. I'll fight you in order to get Illidan back because I know he can help us. And Illidan does come back, and then he does help them, but then he goes off and does his own thing. And like the finale is that Arthas, being kind of commanded by the Lich, who is up in the north saying his power is waning, and Illidan, who's also being commanded by another demon to destroy the Lich, because there's so many different factions. So even within the demon world is very complex. You have Archimonde, which is the main bad demon, and then you have the other ones, which I'm not going to pronounce their names, the red, blue, and green one. And they're like in an eternal conflict. So even the demons fight amongst each other. And it's a very interesting thing that are told through like less than 5 minute cutscenes. And it's really, really impressive how much they pack and how much context they put into these very small cutscenes. And so, yeah, so by the end of the game, you have Arthas being commanded by a demon and Illidan commanded by a demon. And both of these are kind of characters who have both fallen from grace. They've lost their way, and they essentially end up going to the north for one final battle. And it's this kind of sad but like very cool final fight between two fallen heroes that have lost their way, and to two anti-heroes. And yeah, I know it's really, really interesting. And it's so interesting that Frozen Throne was a DLC. I mean, it makes sense, but it just feels so integral to the story. Even by the end of the game, so yeah, like they just everything goes wrong. Like there's not a lot of great things that go right, except for the end of the base game. When you're at the end of the elf campaign, the elves basically sacrifice the elder tree or the source of their immortality in order to banish this giant demon to save the world. So they still are alive, but now they're mortal. So it's a huge sacrifice for them, but it saves the world essentially. And meanwhile, Arthas is also, I think he's against the main demon at that point. Like there's so many interconnecting plot lines that are seem very simple at first, but you kind of forget over time like who has beef with who because of what, because some of them are simply commanded by a demon to serve them and others are just out for their own profit. And so the DLC Frozen Throne is just that Arthas ends up having to essentially just race back all the way to what do you call it, to not Frostrend, Northrend, in order to save the crown of the Lich, because that's his power source. It's basically like, oh Arthas, I'm so weak, my power is waning, you have to get back here and help me. And the real reason, I'm not sure if the Lich knows this, but Illidan has been commanded by his own demons. Like there's the Burning Crusade, which are the old demons, and then there's the new demons led by Arthas, which are the Scourge. And each one is like, oh, you know, my world now, my kingdom now. And so Illidan is being commanded to destroy the Lich to, I don't know, safeguard the power or something. I don't know. So they're in a conflict that neither of them are in control of, even though they've both sought power and control. Neither of them have it, and they're destined to fight each other in the cold north. It's absolutely peak. And like Illidan, just on a moment about his character, like this was made at a time when Edge was just on a raw, like just make the coolest character ever. Like he has almost a little bit of Shadow the Hedgehog energy. Like it's just absolutely pouring out, and it's so unusual for a Western developer to do this. I just love to see it. And the other thing about him too, like literally one of his voice lines, I'm pretty sure in game when you select the characters, is like, "I'm feeling edgy." Like, are you serious? Like, it's so unapologetically cool. I love it. I love Illidan. I love his cool crescent moon blade. I love Arthas's design. But yeah, it's like a very sad story kind of overall because they're both being just, they both fallen from grace. They're both demons essentially. And Arthas's story is pretty brutal. Like halfway through his campaign, or rather the second campaign, is the undead campaign. So you play as one campaign, saving the humans, fighting orcs, like very typical stuff. And the second campaign, you're playing as demonic Arthas, killing the humans, killing your old squad mates. And like it's very dark. And it's essentially it ends up with him coming back to Loredran and killing his father, so regicide and patricide, and taking control of the kingdom. And then, meanwhile, the elves are just concerned about the demons, and it just goes off from there. So, yeah, it's a very well done, personal, emotional story that I just was not expecting. And of course, there's a side character, near the end there, Sylvanas, which again, that becomes a whole other thing. But what's really fascinating is that once the main story wraps up, then you're off to Frozen Throne. And I said pretty much it's just Arthas going back there. But yeah, the difference between Burning Crusade, or sorry, Reign of Chaos and Frozen Throne is that, again, they introduced the Naga and you get to use them for like a few instances or a few missions here and there, but it's kind of like just a kind of a soft remix of a lot of the old forces. Like by the end of the third chapter or the third campaign, which is Arthas's, where you get like, and there's a new insectoid race and you get to use a little bit of it. So there's not a whole one particular new faction in the DLC. It's kind of like a remix of all the old factions of the elves, humans, and undead, but with a little added extra stuff. But the Naga seem to be a full-on like different class, and you don't really get to use them a lot. So that was kind of unfortunate. I was kind of hoping that right out the gate we get a full campaign with Illidan and the Naga, but unfortunately that's not the case. And so yeah, I mean that game kind of concludes, and it finishes off with Arthas, of course, winning, and it seems like he's been deceived by the Lich King, and he and the Lich kind of become one. So I don't know. I like. There's all this subtext. Like, okay, was the Lich just putting him out there as a servant to test him, and he's like, okay, I want to fully possess this guy? Was he just calling him back because he was afraid of Illidan and the other demonic forces? So I know. I think the whole demonic and, well, there's no angels unfortunately, but the whole demonic aspect of it is very unique and very cool. And I don't know. I just really think it's a very, it's not just orcs versus humans. It's a lot more nuanced and again a lot more in depth than that. And so Illidan ends up losing. But what's really fascinating is, again, those last few levels in Frozen Throne. You get the League's kind of spin off. You get the tower defense thing. You get all these other extra little modes and the custom games. And what's super interesting is there's a bonus campaign. And I beat the game like, okay, I'm good, but let's check out this bonus campaign, which is Durotar. And I'm like, oh my god, this is the beta for World of Warcraft. And so the Durotar campaign, because they didn't really touch on the orcs in this one, it's kind of like the remix of the orc one, where you have kind of like a tribesman in the wilderness and these wildlands in Kalimdor, I think. And so you are in this map, and it has fog of war, it has units, but it's basically just your unit and one other guy. and you basically have to survive and also do a bunch of quests for a bunch of people. And there's no lose limit. There's no losing condition. And they have these resurrection stones where you resurrect at. And I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. And then there's certain areas where there's load zones. So you have this little kind of I know, rainbow kind of, line that you cross, and then it loads another map, but the map is part of that world technically. And like, okay, so we're just going to a smaller map to do like a side quest or a dungeon or something, and then we go back and load us back to the main world, and everything's continuous. And you're like, okay, I see what's going on here. So it's a totally new thing. You can tell they're being very experimental about it, because when you even finish that little mini campaign, and again, that campaign, it's really, there are enemies in the world, but you're kind of exploring, and it's just like a RTS map that never like goes away, and you just have like a few characters you take control of. I think what was again really interesting is not only do we get the war chiefs and whatever, that kind of aesthetic, but there's one side mission that I stumbled across where there's a panda. I'm like, oh my god, look at the guy. And so he has just a funny little side quest. I think his name is Chen, and he's not an alcoholic, but he's a brewer. And so you have to help him like find supplies or ingredients for his brew that he uses as a weapon to like set guys on fire and whatever. But what I did not expect at all is a reward for doing his side quest and like a bonus DLC campaign is he actually joins you in the world. I'm like, oh cool. So there's like a party system. So obviously with World of Warcraft, they didn't really go as far as the party system having multiple characters, at least that I'm aware of, like maybe minions or something. But um, they still had that aesthetic and feeling of being in an open world and fully exploring it. And once you do something, it's like done in that part of the map, and it's a continuous, repetitive instance. And it's so cool to see like all of this stuff in just one game. I had no idea, because like I honestly didn't even know Warcraft 3 was a thing, and it's just shocking that it's just so good no one needs to talk about it, kind of thing. And maybe because World of Warcraft just eclipses it in popularity, but as a condensed story or experience, it's fantastic. And the other thing is that with all the campaigns and all the remixes of the single player story and the objectives or whatever, I never felt bored. I've rarely played a game where, like back in the day, you said, oh, I wish games were longer and more content. And that's happened. Now we've open world games that are hundreds of hours long, but none of it is actually really good. This is the one game where I played it for at least 2 weeks, and it was consistently good and consistently engrossing. It was just amazing how much fun this game actually is. And so with Durotar, when it finally concludes after, doing the story quests like, oh yeah, the humans are invading, they're attacking us, they're spying on us, you're introduced to the trolls, and I can tell there's a lot of internet culture that definitely came from these games at this time. I think the fact that like the orcs say keck when they laugh and things like that. And so yeah, the when you finally finish and you do Thrall's mission, you see a zeppelin kind of leading you off into the distance, and implying it's going to load another part of the map. But instead, it says to be continued, and then you can download episode 2 and 3 or act 2 and 3. So it's like very experimental, and they say go to blizzard.com. Obviously, if you go there now, that's you're not going to find that downloadable. At least I don't think so. I look just for fun, but no. And yeah, so it's obviously very experimental, but in a way that was, they had so much confidence in it, and it just took me back to this moment in gaming where it felt like everything was possible. Like everything was just a matter of, we just need to figure it out. Like we need to crack the code. Like what if we took an RTS and we made it a single instance for everyone to log into? It was a massive multiplayer online game. Like the amount of ingenuity and creativity in this game is just staggering. And in a way we kind of stagnated because there was no more necessity to keep innovating at a certain point because people either finished their vision, they finished their creation, it was fully realized. And a lot of games like Resident Evil 2, for example, that was remade because the vision of what they wanted to do with Mr. X or the Pursuer couldn't be done at that time, and they realized they could be done in with the technology at the time. And so there's certain games where the vision of the thing, of what they imagine it to be, is fully realized. And once World of Warcraft was fully realized, the problem is, like, where do you go from there? Once you run out of that creative juice, you're kind of left holding the bag. And so the other very interesting aspect of playing this game is I feel like I've gotten a crash course in the entire World of Warcraft universe because the only MMO I've actually played is Final Fantasy 14. That's the only one I will allow myself to play, but it's, whatever. I feel 14, it has a great story, but I gotta be honest, like World of Warcraft, for the little bit I've played of it, has much better gameplay. Like, the world feels real. It feels better to play. There's something about FF14 that's just kind of, I know, wavy. But the point is that I knew the structure of FF14 is that every expansion is kind of based off a previous game, a certain theme or certain enemy, certain character. And now I can also see what Final Fantasy 14 was borrowing from World of Warcraft. Like, Heaven's Horde is Northrend. Stormblood is, Warlords of Draenor, maybe, or definitely like an orc campaign. And then it's funny because then Final Fantasy 14 did Shadowbringers and Endwalker, and at that point, because they were getting super popular, Warcraft, I feel, kind of copied them. So just to summarize, like, the opening cinematics for each major expansion of World of Warcraft, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I understand that each expansion, like Final Fantasy being based on its previous games, is based on literally each campaign from Warcraft 3. Like, for like 6 expansions, which is just crazy to me. So, for example, Burning Crusade, this is of course named after, the demons, the undead one, and that featured the Blood Elves. I mean, the base expansion was kind of normal, I guess, humans. Then after that, they have Wrath of the Lich King, which is obviously Northrend and Arthur's story. And I'm gonna forget this. I think they did Cataclysm next, and then Mists of Pandaria. I forget. Maybe I got this too confused. And then Warlords of Draenor. And so I realized even up to Warlords of Draenor, that is still pulling from story and content from Warcraft 3, from the same game. And that's why it's this amazing thing that's oozing with all this creativity, that they took it and made it a super long, super successful MMO. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of like having a really good movie and turning it into a Netflix series in not such a positive way. Like, there's one movie called like Speed Tracer, Bullet Tracer, the one where it's all snowy, Snowpiercer, where they turned that into a Netflix series, which was just really bizarre. Like, it's a great movie, that's kind of the point, but to turn that into a series just felt wrong and just kind of like stretched out. Like, we don't need to stretch things, right? And that's what I love about Warcraft 3. Even though it took me 2 weeks to fully beat and do everything, I could not get enough of it. It is such a well-made game. If I had any nitpicks for Warcraft 3, I think that it might be that, I don't know, like, there could have been more story. Like, what we got was very good. A lot of, politics and internal conflict and stuff like that. I would have liked to see more explanation on the lore. It kind of implies that you're supposed to know that, oh yeah, the orcs were created by the demons and that they broke free. Like, all of this stuff is very much implied. It's very much in flight with all of this content that it implies you should have played, I guess, 1 and 2. So I guess I would have liked a little bit more explanation on the lore, but it just kind of starts in the middle of a lot of world building that I kind of wish I knew a little bit more on. Again, Arthas' story and Illidan are great, great stories, but I know I felt like there could be a little bit more to it, like a kind of a nicer conclusion, honestly. Even though it does conclude in a weird tragedy of Arthas kind of winning and becoming the Lich King. It's kind of like, and they do defeat, the demon Archimonde at the Life Tree or whatever. It's still like, okay, so, but what happens next? Like, it's this feeling that it finished, but it wasn't fully concluded. So I think story could have done a little bit polishing. One thing I can't criticize is aesthetics. The art design of the demons, the characters, the voice lines, it's phenomenal. It's perfect. I couldn't do anything better. And again, the music very good, very atmospheric. It's just that there's nothing truly I feel iconic. In fact, the only truly iconic song I actually know or really enjoy from the Warcraft universe is Magnificent Desolation, which is the main theme or one of the themes in Warlords of Draenor. And I love that theme. That is like it's one of my all favorite songs or whatever or music. But that's like in the MMO like 6-10 years later. So that's the only thing I guess I could nitpick there. I do think it was very funny in the credits though that it has a rock song for both instances, and it's very cute how they do it, especially in the first one because they have the characters with the text over their head talking to each other, like kind of like role playing that it's a concert, and you have Arthas playing, and then in Frozen Throne you also have a concert, but while in the first game's credits it's just kind of like a normal instrumental, in the Frozen Throne the end credits actually have full lyrics on them, and it's just absolute Kino cringe butt rock of like earth, air, fire, water, come on to me and give me power or whatever, it's like it's some guy like rocking out, but you can tell like the guy's not a singer. Like I don't know who they got, maybe someone in the office to do it, but it has that wholesome charm to it. And now I finally understand the Horde and why For the Horde matters and what it means. It's I don't know. It's just really great just to have this full context for this whole universe that I just had kind of a glancing opinion about, but now I feel like I can fully at least understand or at least appreciate everything from this universe and why the Horde is so cool, why the Alliance is super cool. Because I always thought, like in the World of Warcraft, like why would you ever join the Horde? A bunch of like barbaric, ugly orcs, and it's like, yeah, that's the point. It's about the boys getting stuck in the trenches with the boys. it's it's so stupid. I love it. And yeah, even that's what I love about it too, especially with the orcs. Like even within their factions, there are different factions that want to stay aligned with the demons and remain slaves to them because they're stronger. Other ones that want to be free at any cost. There's like a shamanistic faction and the trolls. Like it's so interesting that there are multiple layers. There's the Taurens, which are more of a noble warrior based class, I guess, that are more civilized almost. So yeah, every faction is just super, super interesting, not only in their unit design, but in the almost philosophy of each character. There's like a lawful, chaotic, and neutral part of each faction, which is just really, really cool. Um anyway, yeah, I don't just really honestly incredible stuff. And yeah, you can see it's inspiration of Final Fantasy 14, and again, just on the MMO, it's really interesting that once they ran out, once they were kind of past Warlords of Draenor, that's when things really started to go stale, at least like subjectively for me. I haven't played the MMO, but it was like, what was it like, the War for Azeroth and then Legion. And so it's kind of like after, I know this is my impression, so it's not correct or anything, but after Warlords of Draenor, like the battle War for Azeroth seemed kind of like a fallback to Warcraft 1, like orcs versus humans, very kind of simplistic, the Alliance versus the Horde. And then I start seeing the things that really kind of irked me. So in Legion, you have Sylvanas, who's kind of like a sidekick character who's come back again, but she's still a sidekick to some other new guy, but she's on the side of the Alliance, I believe, and they're kind of like, oh, the Alliance and the Horde, we're not that different. I guess that's, or the End Scourge rather. I guess that's the vibe they were going for. And it's kind of like, okay, sure. And then you can see how when everything got woke, along with everything else in the video game industry, where things just got really, really subversive. And that really began with the next one after Legion, I think, which I'll be honest, I don't even remember. But all I saw is that Sylvanas ends up going to, I believe it's Uther, who took no, Uther died. Whoever took Arthas's place on the throne, she basically goes there, and she used to be his subordinate, and she's now, not only does she go there and attain the power that Arthas had, but then she proceeds to actually destroy it and undo the world, and then she becomes this demonic, all-powerful being. So you've gone from sidekick to, like, it's like a scorned energy to it, like, oh, how dare you, like, oh yeah, it's a very boss girl, scornish, spiteful energy. Like, not only am I better than my previous, you know, leader, but I'm actually more powerful than what gave him power, and then I'm more powerful than the entire world of Warcraft. And that was a lot. That was very lazy, inappropriate writing just to like make this person, it's a power scaling issue. We're just going to make this person super powerful for no reason other than, I guess, she's a girl and girl power. Like it's so, because like in the original Warcraft, like everyone has to work together. You can't just be this all powerful being. You have to make alliances with the right people, and you have to be very careful, otherwise it'll backfire you. It's much more realistic, believable. Here, she's just like Superwoman or Supergirl or Wonder Woman. She can just do anything, and then she becomes this. It's like if you wanted to empower a female character, it's kind of like either if they make them a good guy, then they're just going to be boring because they could just beat everyone. But if you make them a bad guy, ooh, it's what they did with Cortana in Halo 5, which was, again, just weird, just weird, honestly. And so Sylvanas goes on to become a very controversial character, and I can see why. I can finally appreciate the controversy around her character now because it's very obvious. Like, this is a minor character, and there's nothing wrong with her, but there's no reason why she should be this powerful. Like, it jumps the shark. It just doesn't, it makes no sense. Like, little Timmy is now running the United States. It's just kind of ridiculous. And it's like there's no justification for it unless it's like, oh, I consumed all the like I don't know. They had to have a reason, and there's no reason for being so powerful. At least not one that I saw in the cinematics. Like it's just because they wanted to. And then further to that, um, oh god, after that was Dragonflight, and just watching that, I just realized, yeah, you're done. Like I don't know what it is or what it was, but the tone of that cinematic is everything wrong with modern gaming. That it felt like it's written by a bunch of moms. Like there's no other way to say it. Like, oh, I don't really know what Warcraft is about, but like, what if there was a dragon and it was like really beautiful and majestic and flying throughout the sky, but it was like endangered and we had to be protected, but it's so beautiful and powerful. It's like a horse and a big beautiful, like it's very, very weird. I did kind of like the stone giants and the golems. That was kind of cool, like a Greek kind of theme to that. But then the dragon showed up and just, and they're red and blue and purple and green, and like it's such a whiplash in tone from a masculine to feminine energy that it almost reminds me of what gaming used to be like. It's a perfect encapsulation of two different philosophies within the same property, no less. And so this idea to control and feminize this thing is, it's honestly, it's super fascinating, and I'm really glad that I got to see that transition, because it's so subtle in a certain way, but it's, once you recognize it, you can start seeing it in everything. So I really do appreciate that. And then the last two that WoW is doing is what is it, War Within and Midnight. And those are very kind of existential apocalyptic stories that feel very similar to Shadowbringers and Endwalker Final Fantasy XIV. So I was like, okay. Obviously, someone at Blizzard still cares enough to actually compete in the space of the best MMO, and also to, how should I say, to try, at least try, not just to be completely selfish and say, well, you know, I just want to make powerful female characters because that makes me feel good. It's not what the people want, but it makes me feel good. So someone at Blizzard obviously was like, look, we need to at least play ball and make something decent. So that's what it seems like. Again, you still have this like sad main character, and it's interesting that like sad main characters like the Odyssey and Nolan's version, there's just so many of them now. It's just ubiquitous, and it's like, yeah, this is not normal. This is very much, this is not normal. This is not how things used to be. And things used to be very straightforward, orcs versus humans, and Warcraft 3 really did it the best. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much, I know, I think that's pretty much everything. And it's funny too, because you know, Final Fantasy, you know, they did an amazing job with Endwalker, but now they kind of did what World of Warcraft is doing. They have this character that I've only heard horrible things about. Like the Japanese hate her, the Americans hate her, like no one likes this character, and she's the main character of Dawn Trail, and she is just super annoying and emotional and stupid, as what I've seen and heard of this character. And it's funny that Final Fantasy was like leading the way, and now they did what the Westerns were doing, if not worse in a certain way. But I don't think it's exactly the same thing as feminizing it. It's just a bad character. Like, it's just like nobody likes it. So yeah. Anyway, so that's the current state of where we are. Again, I am shocked, pleasantly shocked, how good Warcraft 3 was. I'm also very, very blessed that I was able to play the original version. I did not play Reforged. I did try Diablo 2 Resurrected, and that is surprisingly faithful, I would say. But I am very anti remakes, at least in the sense that if I haven't played the original, I feel like every remake should feel like a 1.5, like, you know, Metal Gear Solid to Twin Snakes. Like, it's a 1.5. You should play it after, if you really appreciate the game, kind of thing. Um, and of course, you can't play Warcraft 3. It's very strange. I don't know why, but they still let you purchase the original Diablo 2 through battle.net, which I did and played it and loved it. But for Warcraft 3, you can't play the original. You must play Reforged. And I don't know why. They offered for Diablo 2, which I'm pretty sure came out before this, like in the 90s, not 2002 or 2003. So to me, it's just, it's I don't know, it's very, very strange why they gatekeep one game but not the other. And so I'm very blessed that I have a friend who gave me, or lent me, his original battle chest, physical edition, and with you know, the CD with the license key and Frozen Throne, and you know, and the only difference between this is that has the strategy guides included. So I am very, very grateful I got to experience it the original way, with the original cutscenes, original CG, original sprites. Like, I am so thankful I got to experience one of the most well-crafted games ever. Because, like, you just can't make them like Blizzard figured out the perfect formula to an RTS. I don't know if it's this or StarCraft, but it's definitely between these two. It's somewhere. It's either this one or StarCraft, the original. that is the best RTS of all time. It's at least at least in the sense of pure gameplay. Pure gameplay, it's like that crack aesthetic. I was gonna say earlier, it actually reminded me of Resident Evil 5 and 4 Mercenaries, where you're balancing, obviously you're shooting things, but you're balancing health, time, ammunition, and location, like where you have to go around the map, and you also have to manage your combos. So it's the perfect like balancing act of all these things that put you in a totally trance state that is just phenomenal. And yeah, and Warcraft 3 is just one of those games, which is very, very hard to pull off. Even it even has a good story, which is just fantastic. So it does everything around the board. It checks a lot of boxes. It doesn't do anything bad, and it does everything at least fairly good, if not really good or really well. But yeah, that is Warcraft 3. I understand now and appreciate Western gaming in general a lot. It's really such a shame what's happened to Blizzard. It used to be honestly one of the best companies. Like this is one of the best games ever made. It takes from Western ideas, aesthetics, justice, demons and angels, that kind of thing. And I don't have anything else to say. It's like it's a very very good game. And it's not just good for an RTS kind of thing. Like, a lot of people like praise the games like System Shock 2, which is fine, but like playing it now, it's not great. This this is still like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 game. Anyway, I did want to share that with you all. I can't believe I'm experiencing this at like the end of my gaming career. I thought this would be something on my radar for a long, long time, but I just never knew about it. And thank God I waited so someone could give me their physical copy and I could actually experience the official original way. And the license key still worked. The original way was supposed to be done. The only thing I had to do is the CG cutscenes didn't play because they were in an old codec format. But one quick Google search and it was like, oh, just download this codec or this driver, and it worked perfectly. I'm so like, thank you, thank God. But yeah, I am super, and like even my laptop or my whatever gaming setup, I don't have a CD driver, so I had to buy a detachable one, and it works perfectly fine. Like it's just a box basically, which makes more room for everything else. So, yeah, I could go on. Jaina, Arthas, Illidan, Sylvanas, um, Melkazum or whatever. Just a fantastic cast of characters, of story, of epicness that inspired so much, so much from League. I see why people are addicted to League because you can be addicted to Warcraft. So anyway, that's it. Wanted to share you with that, guys, and just very glad I played this. Anyway, bye.